And welcome back to the Fun Time program. I am your host, John Andrew Fredrickson, here with my beautiful co-host,
Vivica Volt.
And we have a lovely guest on the Zoom today, Andrew Christi. He's an editor at Wingman Magazine. Andrew, how are you today?
I'm really good. Thank you guys so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for joining us over Zoom. I know we're in the middle of a pandemic, so it's, we prefer to bring people into the studio here. I can't wait for you to come in and see the studio in person once this pandemic is starting to slow down. We get our vaccine out, but we're excited to still be able to do these podcast episodes over Zoom. So we really appreciate you taking the time from the comfort of your own home. Where are you today? You're in Bay Ridge?
No, that's I am actually in Flushing right now. I'm staying with a friend.
Oh, nice.
Oh, very nice. All right. Well, we appreciate you
just a friend
taking the time.
Just like out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, basically.
So we have had the chance.
You guys are in Brooklyn, right?
Yeah, we're in East Williamsburg.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll get you out here as soon as things start to slow down again. We'll do another podcast episode here in person. I look forward to that. But we have been working together a couple times now. We did a couple different shoots for Wingman, and in the opportunity of getting to work with you, I was just always really impressed with your ability to kind of work that, celebrity scene. You work with, some really cool people behind the scenes, and you're able to kind of facilitate and bring people together and produce these awesome photo shoots for Wingman Magazine. And I was just like, man, I need to get you on the podcast and hear what that life is like behind the scenes for you. What got you into that world? What was your background? What kind of led you into this world of celebrity and fashion and editorial and all that?
So first, I want to say it's always a pleasure to work with you, John. I think you're amazing at what you do, both as a talent behind the camera, but also your personality. And you also deal with that world very well, and you're very well received. Part of it being the fact that you are supermodel handsome, but also just that you have a great personality. So it's always great to work with you as well. How I got into it was I started out as a fashion stylist about, 18 years ago at this point. And I have been, I styled for a while. I decided that wasn't enough. There wasn't enough growth in that position for me. So I went back to school. I studied industrial psychology for a while. And then I sort of just came back as a writer and kind of found a way to blend the two, becoming a producer.
Nice.
Very cool. Very cool. So how long have you been working with Wingman now?
I've been working with Wingman. It's about 4.5 years. So a reasonably long time. I mean, it's almost half a decade at this point. It's kind of flew, but I'm very happy with the magazine. The magazine has a clear-cut demographic, and I think demographics are really missing these days in what we do.
Very true. Tell us more about Wingman. What is the demographic for Wingman?
So Wingman, I'd say, is sort of like a GQ meets the Hollywood Reporter of the Comic-Con scene, something sort of like Wizard was many years ago. We're aiming towards the millennial man, aged 18 to 40 with a sweet spot of around 29, 30. I think we're trying to tackle the new yuppie. I think that the hipster's a dying breed, and we're trying to go after the young, upwardly mobile professional that is kind of rising from the ashes, which I think is just in general. We had the electric music festival scene and the new hippie, and then the new hipster who kind of rose from those ashes. And now I think we're going into this renaissance of the early 80s of the yuppie.
Okay, very cool. And so what is that like in terms of promotion? Are you guys online only? Do you do a print copy as well?
No, there's definitely a print copy. You've never seen the print copy? It's
no, I haven't.
You should definitely get one. It's like a hardcover book, and it's very glossy. It's like a coffee table book, and it's in a lot of hotels and stuff like that too.
Oh, that's awesome. Who does your marketing? Who does your placement?
That would be the owner, Mike. He does all that.
That's very cool.
How did you two meet?
How did we meet?
We met through our mutual friend, our friend Olivia, who was actually just on the podcast a couple episodes ago.
It's actually the most recent one that we published. So if you're looking it up today, she'll be number one on the front page.
With Olivia.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I met her at Burning Man, and John met her before.
Yeah, Olivia and I go way back in the nightlife scene in New York. So
that's the Burning Man. That's the festival scene. That sort of, again, I feel is very 2010s. That was sort of the 2010 movement of
and now it's completely dead. It's all gone online.
Well, I mean, because of the pandemic, but I also just think that we're kind of just getting into a new phase as time does things. That's kind of the progression of life in general.
How do you see that changing as things come back from the pandemic?
Well, I think the pandemic is hurting, of course, a lot of industries, but I think it's especially hurting the entertainment industry. I mean, this in general, it's like you guys are doing a podcast and you're doing it from the comfort of your own home. So someone like Jennifer Garner, if she decided to do it from the comfort of her own home, what makes hers better than yours? Nothing. It's like, if you can capture the audience better than Jennifer Garner, then you are the winner as far as entertainment is concerned. Whereas with Jennifer Garner, it's like she might have the name to help her, but production value and all that doesn't matter anymore. And I think that that's been a trend for a while, but the pandemic has certainly leveled the playing field in a way that should be scary to Hollywood.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've noticed that, at Wingman, you guys are doing these shout out kind of things, the Instagram story kind of stuff. It seems like, that's something that's been kind of like percolating behind the scenes and has becoming more and more integrated into the way that people are promoting their stuff these days. But the pandemic has really forced that to the forefront, where it's like, you have all these tools at your disposal. If you're not taking advantage of them, you're going to be left behind. And there is no more barrier to entry in the way that there used to be.
I think that's 100% correct. I think that as of right now, we're living in a day and age of creating your own content. Is unless you're part of a Marvel movie or something for Disney or something like that, it's like you can make a movie right now, the two of you, for Netflix, and it could be just as successful as anything else that comes to Netflix that doesn't have Tom Cruise attached. You know what I mean? And I think that as of right now with your podcast, you have every chance and opportunity to go get your own advertisers, and you could say, oh, we're being advertised by Mario Soap, and Mario Soap will pay you the same thing that will keep your brand alive, the same way that Johnson & Johnson is paying for The View. And I think there are more independent businesses starting up because of Instagram that want those plugs that can't afford to be on The View. So, I mean, I'd like to believe that there's enough out there for everybody that we can all sort of survive and thrive. But who knows if that's the case? Like, that's a pipe dream.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. What do you guys, what's your approach to finding, sponsors and people to help support the magazine? How do you guys look at that?
So in general, one thing about us at Wingman is we're very into small business because of the fact that small business has been hurting for a long time, and we like supporting those kinds of brands. And I think the pandemic is really showing that. It's like not everybody can be ordering from Amazon and stuff like that, because then there's no growth for anybody else. So we do try and seek out smaller brands that work with our brand, that are something that our readers and the audience that we want is going to be attracted to. As of right now, we just partnered up with a company called Dapper Classics for a stocking stuffer award. So all the Christmas movies that you see, we're doing a stocking stuffer award for, Goldie Hawn from Christmas Chronicles or whatever it is. And they're a sock company. So we try and find ways to tie in the brand that makes sense rather than just like promoting a brand that doesn't work with our brand.
Right. That makes sense.
Wow. That's really
we
interesting.
work with companies like Travis Matthew, which is like a fashion company for golf and stuff like that. It's like things that tie into our brand. For you guys, I mean, I know that you guys talk about sex a lot and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So getting even like a... I don't know if that's
true.
No.
I clearly never talk about sex all the time.
So plugging even like an independent, sex toy company is not a bad idea. And again, everyone wants those plugs and that promotion. And it's about finding deals and partnerships that work for you that keep you guys going.
Yeah, that makes sense. Where do you guys end up finding most of the people that you end up working with? Is it all through social media these days? Is it just stuff that comes
really
across
not.
your feed?
Sometimes a publicist will come to us directly and ask us to partner with the brand that they work with. It depends. It all depends. Sometimes we know people who know people, You never know. Like you guys might know a company too that it's like, oh, my friend has a startup that he's been doing. Maybe you guys can get involved with him or something like that. I think that you could find it all different ways. And I think that, again, everyone's trying to make their own business run. So instead of being competitive or catty with things, it's just better to be welcoming and warm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I mean, how did I find John? I found John through working with him. And it's like, and I saw that he was doing a podcast and I was like, oh, I'd love to be on it. I know that he's got one of the biggest and best personalities out there. So I'm sure you
are the sweetest.
Right.
Well, this is what you do so well. You are so good at talking people up and making them feel special, making them feel like this is the big important day that they are a part of. And that's why it's always been such a pleasure working with you. How did you get your start working in terms of like celebrity? You said you started as a stylist.
I started what was that like at the beginning? Many years ago. I started as a stylist when I was in my, I guess, very late teens, early 20s. And I just sort of, I don't know, I was at FIT. I met some photographers who were shooting celebrities and I just got lucky, I guess. And back then it was a different world. I mean, there was no Instagram, there was no social media, because I'm way older than I look. I hope I'm older than I look. Maybe I look.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you said 18 years, I was like, okay, so you started when you were 2 or...
Yeah, I mean...
You've just been on that grind since toddlers?
It was just a different world back then, though. It's like there was a lot of money to be made. It was just a different kind of community. And I started again before the first recession, and well, not the first recession, but our lifetime's recession in 2008. And then 2008 destroyed everything. So
right. Yeah. Since then, it's just been like a new world, right?
The struggle bus.
And it's been pretty bad. But I mean, but again, it's like, I think that we found a new way of rolling with things. And then now this pandemic has hit us hard again. But luckily, Wingman has been doing okay through the pandemic, which I'm very happy about. So.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
It's excellent to hear.
How many episodes do you guys put out a year?
How many issues? We put out 5. We put out seasonal
issues
once a season,
course.
and then holiday.
Episodes. I'm here on my podcast. I'm thinking episodes.
Yeah,
obviously, it's issues.
Episodes, right.
We're talking magazines.
Have you guys been affected by the pandemic at all?
Well, we started in the pandemic, so I guess the pandemic affected us in the sense that it forced us to start a podcast.
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
that's good.
I've been working on this podcast concept for a couple of years now in several different iterations and different forms. And for me, it was always about the face-to-face, that intimate, getting to talk to somebody, getting to really experience them in person, and then trying to document that. And the pandemic at first was just this terror for me. I had started a new project called Real Model Stories, where I was doing these interviews with models and a photo shoot with the model and like talking about their experience in the modeling world. And then the pandemic hit, and that was just like, I just didn't feel like I could do that project over Zoom. You know what I mean? So then I started, chatting with Viv here, and we started talking about all the different things that we wanted to do and what we were interested in together. And that's where this podcast came from. And it's been amazing to be able to do this in a capacity where having conversations over Zoom is pretty good. We're still able to kind of get to the bottom of things, even though we'd much prefer to have people here in the studio. The topics that we're talking about, we can reach a much wider audience, I feel like, and not just audience in terms of like people watching it, but audience in terms of like people that we can engage with. So we've been interviewing people from, London, from the Netherlands, from LA, from all over the place. So it's increased our reach, our ability to kind of like expand the people that we're going to talk to. And that's been really exciting. So, it's been a fun year for us, I would say. It's definitely opening doors.
Well, you two have a really great chemistry from what I can see. And also you have extraordinarily different perspectives. And,
yes,
it's like, I mean, that's very important when you want to host something with talking heads, is that you are able to bounce off of each other well, while still offering something fresh and unique from each other, instead of just having an echo chamber.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. John and I are constantly joking that we're each other's yin and yang because we balance each other out so well.
We should just put a big old yin yang up on the wall behind us. I think maybe that should be our new logo.
Can be orange and black.
You should.
Orange and black. I like that. Which one am I?
Clearly not the orange.
Orange is my favorite color. I'm just going to throw it
Orange is my favorite color too.
Amazing.
It's the best color. And they say that people who like orange is extremely attached to orange, which I am.
Yes,
I also
absolutely.
really like rainbow prints, and I see you have rainbow prints on your shirt right now.
This is why I wanted to get you into the studio, because you've always got the coolest fashion, you always got the coolest colors, and I was like, we could have done a really cool photo shoot in here, and we're going to do it. So get ready.
We will. We will. I'll dress you guys up, and we'll do a promo shoot.
That's a great idea. When do you think that kind of stuff is going to start happening again? When are you going to feel comfortable coming into the studio again? Do you think January? Are we thinking February, March? Like what's the trajectory?
So I feel like I could come into the studio. That's not my, like, I'm not, in March, I was terrified to leave the house, really terrified. And I think rightfully so, because it was colder and we're kind of getting colder again, although I think we have more of a handle on things now. But, I'm more afraid, like one thing I will not do still is go on the train or go on the bus or anything like that. So it's not about coming into the place. It's about getting to the place for me.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, I think that it's like, there's a way to be smart. There's a way to respect the pandemic and not, go out willy nilly. And then there's like, you have to live. We have to be able to live.
Of course. Since the start of the pandemic, I've been on the subway exactly 5 times.
Wow.
It's mostly just been for errands that like I absolutely needed to take the subway for. But
because
otherwise,
you bike everywhere.
Yeah, I bike everywhere.
Have you been rollerblading everywhere? Because I know you're a rollerblader.
I rollerblade. I do rollerblade a lot. Right now, the cold has sort of stopped that slightly, but I do rollerblade a lot. I'm actually, I'm going to be doing it, I believe, this weekend or next weekend. But I was rollerblading like 5 times a week before. So
I've been going everywhere on rollerblades. It's amazing. It's changed my perspective on the city, because all of a sudden, things that would take like a half hour to an hour on the subway, it's like, because of the way the lines don't connect in Brooklyn, I can do it in like 20 minutes on rollerblades. So it's been really fun to experience the city in that capacity.
It's great exercise, and it's actually a good time. I will say though, like being from Bayside though, everybody has cars and stuff like that. So it hasn't been a dire need to get on a subway or a bus, which is always appreciated.
Yeah, that makes sense. One of the few parts of the city where
are you from,
everyone
Vivica?
has a car. I'm originally from Ohio.
Ohio. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been in New York?
I have been here for 12 years officially. 12 years in October.
Okay. Wow. That's a long time now. So
I'm officially a New Yorker. I was actually born here, which is really fun. I was born in Jamaica, Queens, and I moved to Ohio when I was 3. So technically I am an official New Yorker, but like I earned my New Yorker status.
Have you ever lived anywhere else?
No, I've always been in Queens my entire life. Always.
Amazing.
Born and raised. So, and honestly, I never want to leave.
Queens is fucking amazing.
Have you seen it change over the years? Has it been a big?
Of course. I mean, I think that even where I am, it's like it used to be a lot more Italians. It's there's definitely a big Asian population coming in now. I mean, Brooklyn, where you guys are, when I was younger, was not the the hot spot that it is now.
Right.
And even then, I think that Brooklyn's sort of dying out, and we're seeing other areas of New York repopulate and gentrify.
Absolutely not. Brooklyn is not dying. This is still the hot spot to be.
Well, one of the scary things of the pandemic and I'd say the looting has been the fact that it's harder. It's like, I think that the more, like, let's say Harlem gets looted and stores are burned to the ground, what's coming in there is severe gentrification where people will force people out of their homes and stuff like that and out of their stores, which is very scary and sucks a lot. So throwing that out there too.
Yeah, you definitely saw that happen here in Williamsburg and Bushwick. And it's still happening. It's spreading. It's out to like Ridgewood now. It's like it just keeps getting further and further.
But you guys stayed the whole time. You didn't go home to Ohio or to upstate?
Nope.
No, I don't have any family back in Ohio anymore. It's just friends, and like it made no sense for me to go back to Ohio because every time I've gone back to Ohio, within an hour of stepping off the plane, I'm so bored that I'm like, oh, cool. So what is there to do here? Drink and go to the mall. Cool. That's not going to work for me. So going back to Ohio in a pandemic, I might have lost my entire mind.
I feel like New York was the best place to be during this whole thing. You know, I felt like New York just became a new city, that you lost all the tourists. Sure, all the entertainment stuff kind of disappeared, but like we were able to experience the city in a whole new way this summer as a result of the pandemic.
I mean, it's probably more interesting than a place like Ohio. I'll say that. But I think that as far as being quarantined, it's who you're with, you know?
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
It's the people. You could be, from here to the moon, but if you like the people that you're with, then you're okay. So
I was by myself.
I'm with all the time if I'm alone. So.
I was just gonna say the same thing. Exactly. If you enjoy being with yourself, quarantine is a good time. I'm looking forward to the next lockdown. You think we're gonna have one another week or two? What do you think? What's the prognosis?
I think we're going to get stricter before we get looser. I don't know about a severe lockdown again, but I do think we'll get stricter before we get looser. I also think that as far as you just said, it's good to be alone. I like being alone too. I think the pandemic has brought out severe codependency in people that more than ever before. That's one thing I'm seeing is that codependent people are on fire. They are the mental state of them is deteriorating because they feel like they need to be with someone every second of every day. And they're afraid of like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to go out and meet somebody and blah, blah, blah. And really it's like, it's a big lesson to people that they should be comfortable being alone.
The pandemic relationships that have popped up. One of my friends legitimately started dating a girl 6 months ago. So when the pandemic started, and they just got engaged. And I'm like, ooh,
wow.
That's not okay.
This has breeded codependency like no tomorrow. The most codependent people in the world are losing their minds. So
it's
one thing
super apparent. Every time I jump on a dating app, I'm like, oh, the thirst is like dying in the Sahara level over here.
It's like
the thirst for like real relationships.
You want to go on a date tomorrow, and they show up with a ring. That's how bad it is right now.
It's not just like cuffing season. It's so we're going to be together for the next, like, I don't know, 3 generations. Is that cool with you?
Right.
2 dates in.
It's true. It's really bad. You know, I've never been a codependent person. I don't know why, but I've always been very comfortable with myself. And it's just something I'm noticing is that a lot of my friends, it's like they're on fire as far as codependency is concerned.
Oh yeah. I've 1,000% seen that, where it's just like, okay. All right. So everybody and their sister is jumping into these quarantine relationships. Cool. Y'all don't know how to be by yourself.
Too. Is that people who aren't codependent like myself, I suppose, or like John, I don't know you, Vivica, but is that if you are forced to be with somebody, you start to say, wow, I don't want to do this. I want to be alone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The first 3 months of quarantine, I was with my primary partner, and they and I don't really want to live together anytime soon, but like we started talking about it, like in the next like year or so, looking into moving in together. And then we were kind of forced to move in together for the pandemic because they lived much closer to my job at the time than I did. And so I stayed with them for the first 3 months of the pandemic, and that was a whirlwind. It almost broke our relationship.
Partner. Mm-hmm. Primary partner meaning that you have other partners as well.
Yeah, I'm polyamorous, so I have multiple partners. Yay!
Yeah,
that's
honestly,
awesome.
I think deep down everybody is polyamorous. I think that it's just the people who choose to accept it or not.
Interesting.
That's kind of how I feel about sexuality too, where everyone's a little bit gay.
I agree 100%. I agree 100%. I think that scientifically, we are not created to be a monogamous or completely heterosexual species. So
there's a great book called Sex at Dawn that makes that argument that basically says that we evolved to live in these tribes where everybody was kind of having sex with everyone, and there was no need to know whose child was whose, because the tribe raised the children. So the children didn't have like a father. Yeah, they maybe had a mother in the sense that like they knew whose womb they came out of. But in terms of the fathers, all of the men were the fathers. You know what I mean? And all of the women were the mothers, and they all raised them together. And then agriculture came around, and all of a sudden there was this need to like have ownership over your children because you were providing for them on your own. You lived on your own. You had your own resources, and you had to worry about like, you know, if your woman was having sex with other men, you didn't know that they were your children. You didn't want to invest your resources into those children. And all of a sudden monogamy became a thing. And so this book argues that it's like, it's not really our natural state. It's an interesting
I don't think it's our natural state at all. I think that monogamy also is pushed by religion, and it's pushed by the need to control society. So, 1000%. And I don't believe in it.
Yeah, it's the forced nuclear family kind of situation.
Exactly. Which I don't really think as primates, that's not who we are. A forced natural family, nuclear family.
Not at all.
We're not that.
So how many partners do you have right now?
I don't have a primary partner, but I can have sex with anybody I want, which is always good.
Which is always great.
Honestly, I think I put a lot of emphasis into my friends in a way other people don't. I think I've always said there's 4 points of a diamond of satisfaction. You can have emotional satisfaction, you can have companion satisfaction, you can have sexual satisfaction, and you can have life building satisfaction. And the problem that people make is they try and look for all 4 quadrants to be filled by one person. I could have great companionship, great emotional connection with someone without having sex. And I could have banging sex with someone without having an emotional connection or a companionship connection. It's like, I might not like the same movies as them. I might not want to build my life with them. But if the sex is good, I want to have sex with them for a night. And I think that
1,000%.
If you seek out 100% satisfaction in one quadrant instead of seeking out 30% satisfaction in all 4 quadrants, just have one person, you're going to be a happier person.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. That's good advice.
Oh, yeah. No, I completely agree because every time I've tried to find everything in one person, it's just ended in me being incredibly disappointed. But when I find happiness
and depressed.
Yeah. 1,000%. But when I look for basically compartmentalization, where I can say, oh, I'm looking for X quality. Like I want someone where I can play video games with them. Okay, cool. Well, I can play video games with this partner, but then with this other partner, we're really kinky. And then with this other partner, I just like see them at parties. And then this other partner, like we go out on like super romantic dates and we're very cuddly, but like we don't do a whole lot of the sex stuff. It's great because then there's never any pressure of feeling like you have to mold somebody into something.
Exactly. And I think our natural way as humans is that we do seem to use these patterns and craft these kind of relationships with our friends. We could say, oh, that's my friend for going out. That's my friend who always has my back. But we just don't do it with relationships, which is stupid because we're conditioned by society that, oh, like you watch these romantic comedies, you could bicker with this person and yet they might still be the one because you have that certain something. There is no one. You could have multiple different people who you have something really special with without them having to own or monopolize your life.
Yes. I love that. That's awesome. How long have you had that perspective? Is this something that you had early on, or did you kind of come to it later in life?
I think I naturally had it early on, and maybe it's just my anti-codependence that I don't need that, and also just my counterculture way and my studying of science and stuff like that. But I've never really been desperate to have a relationship with anybody, and I think in the past 10 years, I've really known that about myself because 10 years ago when I was talking about polyamory, people were in the dark about it. Everyone looked at me like a weirdo. And now I feel like I'm more conventional than the most of the people out there who practice any lifestyle. So
look at you becoming normal.
Yeah.
The world's catching up with you.
I'm such a normal person. Yeah.
So norm.
Well, what about you, Vivica? When did you start knowing you were polyamorous?
So yeah, kind of a similar situation. I knew as a teenager that monogamy was going to be a strain for me because I've known since I was 12 that I was bisexual. So like having a relationship with any one person kind of cuts me off from half of my sexuality. Right. So
I agree 100%.
Figured when I was like a teenager and still kind of religious and still trying to be monogamous, I was like, okay, so I just have to find a boyfriend who's into having threesomes with women so that I get to play with women and it's a perfect loophole. But so now I'm just like, wait, I could just like have sex with women and not have to have a man present. That's so much better.
So, it's weird. Like I actually like the group sex. I like having sex with both at the same time.
Oh yeah, no, that's great.
It's great. It's the best of both worlds. And I always knew that. I think being bisexual from a young age, acknowledging being bisexual from a young age also kind of gave me the same trajectory where it was like, I knew very early on that a woman would never satisfy me and a man would never satisfy me. Yeah. So it just it made me know that I would want multiple people in my life.
Yeah. I have to say some of my favorite times is when I've been able to have a situation where multiple partners of mine have been hanging out with me all at once, whether it's like a party or it's my birthday or something, where we all just get together and everybody gets along and everybody knows that like they have some connection to me in like a sexual or romantic capacity, but no one gives a shit. And like everyone just acts like, oh yeah, cool. Who's this like person? Like this person's chill. Because realistically, if like the person that you're dating, right? If I'm dating someone, the likelihood is the next person I date is going to be someone the first person is going to enjoy because they're going to be somewhat similar.
So you see, one of the problems that I have when it comes to this stuff is that like, let's say I meet someone like you and we have so the same mindset that like, oh, like a lot of people are not awakened to this stuff. It's becoming more increasing, but again, a lot of people are not. So if I meet someone like you, it's like I immediately wanted to work out with someone like you so that way you understand. And I think that's sort of the dating pool of people that actually get it is very small. And I think that's something that's been a little troublesome is because I'll meet someone like you and I'll be like, I need to have this person in my life, blah, blah. And sometimes it's just not right. You know what I mean?
Right. It's not the right fit, but you're just like, but I need it to be the right fit.
Right, but we feel the same way.
All of the things line up.
Well, and then the other thing that I think is really important to me for life building is someone like John, where John in his previous relationship had something that I admire in the fact that they shared the same visions and they wanted to build a life as far as the career goes. And my career is so important to me. It's everything I focus on. So if I had, let's say, a couple like the two of you who you were invested in what I wanted to do work-wise, and then you still had the polyamorous ideas, and it's like that's to me is the dream. Dream,
that's just like the whole polycule just working together to make the dream happen. Oh,
tribal living. It's like, you all working together for a common goal, living in the same tribe, stuff like that. So it's tribal living.
I love that. It's a beautiful way of looking at it. How has the pandemic affected your dating life?
Well, I have not. I mean, I was pretty slutty before, and I have not been my promiscuous self. But at the same time, like when I'm home and like I am the king of social distancing to begin with. I do all my work from home, stuff like that. So, so that hasn't really changed stuff. It's like usually if I'm out and stuff like that, I'll find a partner to be with that night. And I haven't really been doing that because I haven't been going out as much. So I haven't noticed it. But then I'll sit there and be like, wow, I've only had sex with 18 partners this year. That's rare. You know what I mean?
Oh my God. Yeah. No, I 100% understand that feeling entirely.
I think that's more than my lifetime count. Just
it's
throwing that out there.
1,000%. It's absolutely more than your lifetime count.
Is more than your lifetime? No.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
like I said, we come from very, very different backgrounds.
Yeah, he's at about a 10th of the number of partners that I'm at.
Well, also you were in a relationship for a very long time.
I've always done serial monogamy. Yeah, I've never really done I've never even done the like single and dating or even like just like hooking up with lots of different people. It's just never been a path for me. Yeah, I don't know. Different strokes.
Well, baby's first foray into sluttiness.
There are some people who really feel, and I don't think this is you, but there are definitely people out there who feel the need to have that one person just because they're, I'd say, insecure. And I don't think that's you at all. I think that you're a very secure person.
No, I think that absolutely was me. I think that
really?
I think that hits the nail on the head, and it's hard to reflect on that and kind of like confront that. But that's what this pandemic and this year has really given me the opportunity to do, is look at myself and what it was that I was seeking out in relationships with people and what I actually needed, you know what I mean? And recognizing that maybe the things that I was pursuing in the past were coming from a place of insecurity or a place of like trying to, you know, replace some, I don't know, childhood vision of what relationships and life is supposed to be, and recognizing that maybe that's not actually a healthy perspective on it. So I've just been taking the time to really just be with myself and you know, spend time with myself and recognize what I need and to prioritize myself and to say that that's okay. It's okay. Cause I don't know. I come from this background of like, you have to live your life for other people, you know, and I've recognized that that's just, it's not a healthy way to be. And being able to simply say, you know, I matter and I am important. If I am not treating myself with love and care and respect, I can't be a good partner for other people. And so that, yeah, I mean, pandemic's been a real blessing for me from that perspective.
And I wouldn't shit on yourself for it, because I think there are more people like you than like me and Vivica, to be honest.
Right.
I think more people are conditioned to believe. I mean, that's society's ingraining into your brain that you need to be with that one person, and that if you don't have ownership on that person, then that person doesn't love you. And that's what society teaches us.
I grew up without Disney somehow, and yet here I am, you know, totally brainwashed by Disney. I don't even know how that happened.
How did you grow up without Disney is the question.
Oh Lord, that's that's a whole conversation. I grew up in an alternative education system. My parents were both teachers in a school called the Waldorf School, and media was not allowed. So there was no television, there was no movies, there was none of that. Did a lot of reading. Yeah. So
are your parents upset that you now work in media?
No, not at all. It's funny because as much as they have ideas about like how children should be raised and like how people should live their lives, they also raised us with the idea that we needed to explore the world and figure things out for ourselves, and have always been very supportive of any direction that I have gone in or my brothers and sisters have gone in. So that's been real fortunate. And it's been real interesting, especially, you know, from like a religious perspective on how I've become like, I don't know, such a staunch atheist and kind of having a ton of resentment towards religion and this idea of, you know, the way that religion teaches you to think about the world. And I find it super damaging. And so now coming back to like getting closer with my parents in older age and having, you know, these conversations about religion where, you know, I'm now recognizing that they have more of a serious relationship with it than I realized as a kid. So it's funny how they've kind of like pushed me out into the world and been like, figure things out on your own and get your own perspectives. And now we come back together and we're like totally at odds with each other in terms of how we see the world. It's kind of funny.
So you're a staunch atheist. You see, I fancy myself the most religious, non-religious person in the world and the most sexual, non-sexual person in the world. So
what does that mean? What does it mean? Religious, non-religious?
So I wear a cross. I think I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. And at the same time, I don't believe in like the Catholic Church and the way the Catholic Church handle things. I think that I have my own religion unto myself that I strongly believe in, that is not that I also can sit there and see someone like you who says that you're an atheist and there's a lot of reasons not to believe in certain things. There is a lot of scientific fact out there that disprove many of the holy books, you know, from Catholic to Judaism to Hinduism, whatever. It's like there's a lot. I mean, I think that religion has been used to control people for a very long time. So I understand where someone like you would come from. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been interesting having these conversations with my parents now later in life because they didn't really, I mean, as much as I was raised Christian, it never came from them. You know what I mean? I never had conversations with them about what they believed. And so I kind of always just assumed that, they maybe treated it in a similar way that I did, where I recognize, this is all, from my perspective, appears to just be bullshit. And it's like, it's nice stories and it's nice way to raise kids and like teach them about our ancestry and how humans have thought about the world and spirituality and all that. But like at the end of the day, we don't really believe it. And it turns out they do really believe it. And that's been really odd for me to, try to confront that and understand where they're coming from. Because it just, from everything that they've taught me, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, a lot of these books could be, I would say, the biggest moral media entries of the time. Whereas now it's like, let's just say Iron Man is a very moralistic movie that teaches the world. I mean, I don't think Iron Man is, but that teaches the world what is supposed to be society-wise. In 5,000 years, maybe people will be worshiping Iron Man. It's like, if you look back at I mean, I think that's sort of a big thing that happened, is that religion came from a way to teach. It's like it came from these books that could have just been entertainment at the time. I mean, again, all of our entertainment has some kind of moral baked in. It's like if you read Cinderella or whatever it is, not that you know that because it's Disney or whatever, but if you read any of these stories, even Shakespeare has a lot of moral lessons baked in that it's like we don't worship Hamlet.
But that's actually a really interesting point, because I do know the stories of like Cinderella and some of these other stories because they came from fairy tales.
Yeah, Grimm's fairy tales.
And so I grew up with these fairy tales.
Right, but Grimm's fairy tales and Disney's versions are very different.
Right, much darker. But those are the ones that I'm more familiar with. So I do know the stories, but I wasn't quite, brainwashed with sort of the Disney ideal. And yet here I came into adulthood with this perspective of like, living happily ever after with your princess, and I needed to be her prince. You know what I mean? Like that was kind of what I got thrust into mentally. And it's so weird to come out the other end of that and be like, maybe this isn't the best way of looking at it, and recognizing how much Disney brainwashes people of our generation, and being so confused that like, I wasn't necessarily brainwashed with Disney, but yet I still managed to get the brainwashing. And I'm like, where did it come from?
Well,
so I don't know.
Well, I think that, atmosphere, people that you surround yourself with too, are also brainwashed, and then it seeps onto you, know?
Oh, 1,000%.
And it's like
I think it also,
having people in your life like Vivica, who has a different perspective, is going to enlighten you to different things.
Exactly. And this podcast has been a great journey so far.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that our society is just very naturally based in toxic masculinity and the patriarchy. And the patriarchy benefits from that princess and happily ever after ideal. So it reiterates that at every turn of, you have to find the one, you have to have your 2 kids, your house, and your white picket fence. Yep. You have to have like this perfect like Jan like Baker like Andy Griffith kind of relationship, and nothing ever goes wrong. But like, it's really funny because if you look back at the relationships that like we're idealizing from like the 50s and the 60s, most of the men in those relationships beat the shit out of their wives or like emotionally abuse their wives.
Or we're cheating on them.
Absolutely. So like their ideal relationships were fucking trash.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
I
good
think
point.
I think even sometimes if there's no abuse or anything like that, a certain times there's just a loneliness that comes from only having one person where you're not fulfilled in certain ways. So it's, it's like, those are extreme examples, but sometimes it's just, not the fit, and you're just looking to be perfect in a relationship that isn't working, But I will say also, you mentioned toxic masculinity. While I think that if you are obsessed with being masculine, that's a toxic idea, I don't think masculinity in general is a toxic thing. I
don't think masculinity in general is toxic. No, I think it's the ideals of toxic masculinity that kind of seep in.
I think the obsession with masculinity, but the words toxic masculinity, they sort of grate on me because of the fact that I feel like there is not such an obsession with that anymore. And there's just as much toxic femininity in the world too, that I would not want to be a part of.
And I think it's important though to point out though that toxic masculinity doesn't mean all masculinity is toxic. It means the specific brand of masculinity that is toxic is acting in a certain way. So it's important to recognize that, you know, that masculinity is a very powerful and important thing. And like, you know, men and women need to recognize how to connect with sort of the masculine side and the feminine side. And neither one is necessarily good or bad. It's a question of how much are they taking over people's lives and in what capacity.
So I agree. And I think that that's why it's like some things in life, it's the way it's branded that makes it sound bad. Like the words toxic masculinity have become a part of our culture. And there are tons of females that are also very masculine. And I don't think that those females that are masculine are bad for being masculine. I think that masculinity in general is not a bad thing. It's if you are focused, or not you guys, but someone is focused on someone needing to be masculine or needing to be feminine, that's where it becomes toxic. Not the fact that actual masculinity is toxic. Because again, if a girl is extraordinarily masculine, like Rosie O'Donnell is masculine, it's not her masculinity that's the toxic part. It's the focus on the fact that she shouldn't be.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Said.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah. Oh, no, it makes perfect sense. It's also kind of this situation where if you have a guy who's super focused on like how big of a man he is, like how big his muscles are, or how big his dick is, or, you know, like how many chicks was he banging this week? And it's just like, oh, cool. So your entire personality is I'm a man.
Right. Yeah. And that's totally toxic. And I agree. And I think that, but it's not his masculinity that's toxic. It's his toxic obsession with masculinity. Oh, yeah. And I think that I think we should just start throwing that word in there, because I think that's really what's more important. Because I don't know. I mean, a lot of people I think have actually said to me, wow, you are nowhere near as feminine as I thought you would be. And it's like, I shouldn't have to be one thing or the other. I think that it's like,
why do people expect you to be feminine?
Well, you're not seeing my entire self. I'm teeny tiny and I always wear no pants, and it's like a whole thing. And then when people get to know me, they're like, oh, you come across a lot more masculine than I thought you'd be. And I don't even put thought into it because I have no obsession of what I'm supposed to be. It's like, I want to look like this cutesy little boy, blah, blah, blah. And then I think my innate nature is to be maybe more masculine than I plan. So who knows?
Well, you know, cheers to breaking boxes. Because I think that that's the best way to be. And that's one of the things that, you know, drew me to you originally, too, is that you're this person who defies expectations. And you know, it's so easy to look at people and be like, okay, this person's that, this person's that, this person's that. And I'm going to immediately now treat them as if they fit into this box and they're going to meet every stereotype that I have of that box. And when you meet people who just defy that and say, fuck you, I'm not going into your box. I'm going to act in a way that doesn't meet what you think I'm supposed to be doing based on whatever picture you have of me in your head. I think we need more of that in the world. And so cheers to defying expectations.
An individual. So it's funny because like when I met you and your ex, what was interesting about that situation is that you guys had a branding of, in front of the world, this is what society has taught us is perfection, is just perfection. And like when I met you guys, I saw that branding and I was like, wow, this is a really smart branding. But what actually made me interested in you guys is how much you deep down defy that branding within yourselves. And I just thought you guys were fascinating people. You know, it's like, here it is. Here's this picture perfect cookie cutter, what everybody wants and could be jealous of. And then when you actually talk to you guys, you were not as hung up on that as it would seem from the pictures. You know what I mean? There was no focus on being that. It was much more, you were individuals. And I was like, wow, if I met, like, again, being polyamorous, if I met a couple like that, who was in my field, who was the most beautiful people alive, who were just interesting and fascinating and could talk. It's like, that's like the dream relationship, you know?
Yeah.
I also think it's really interesting that you say that, because it depends on which one of them you talk to, because one of them was very hung up on that image.
Well, we're not going to get into that here today. I want to hear more about, you know, what your plan is with Wingman going forward. You know, you guys have been doing really well during the pandemic. You've been still pulling off really cool photo shoots, which actually I'm curious to hear more about. What was your experience like working with these PR companies and working with the talent in terms of COVID? Like, what was the challenge in terms of pulling off these shoots?
So I think that people are definitely more cautious these days, but not as cautious as you would think. I think that everybody needs press right now, and it hasn't been quite as hard. There's been obstacles, of course, but as you saw when we did our photo shoot, it's like people masked up, we brought a temperature gun, and life went on.
Right.
I think going forward with Wingman, it's like it's been growing exponentially, and it's been a fantastic ride, and I think the magazine is doing very well. For me, I always saw it as a back door where I get to meet these amazing people, and I'd say parlay my work into something else. And it's still been that way. It's like I'm getting scripts read that I would never have gotten read before.
So you're a writer.
I'm a writer.
I didn't even know that. So you're a screenwriter.
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot as an artist. It's like we all wear tons of different hats. It's like you're a photographer, but you're also a podcaster. You know,
right.
So
tell us more about that. I want to hear about that world.
So, I mean, I've been writing since I was young. Of course, I always loved writing. I just wrote during the pandemic. I wrote a 10-episode series, and these shows that I write and stuff like that. Just being a writer, sitting here in my own, home, just doing it is not going to give me the same exposure that working at the magazine does give me.
Right.
So for me, it's like, whereas it's, is it the best gig financially in the world? Of course not. But the exposure that I'm getting from it is priceless. You know what I mean?
You're learning how to make connections and talk to the right people.
Exactly. And people are starting to respect me as a producer and someone who can pull off shoots. So it's like, the next step is getting my stuff into the right hands to go on a bigger scale. And I think that that's especially with photographers like you, for example, you could be shooting, every Tom, Dick, and Harry who could pay you $1 million to shoot their wedding or whatever it is. But being with these kinds of people is going to grow your career just for the exposure that you're getting and the connections that you're making. And if you have a good personality like you and you're memorable like you, you're going to go further as far as the people that have the money to make bigger things happen.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. That's a great perspective. So what's your plan then for 2021?
Well, I'd say 2021 for the magazine, same as usual. We're going to be putting on the same shoots, putting out the same great content. And for myself personally, I would love to sell a script. I would love to keep, exploring that world. Hopefully that happens for 2021. And I think that I try not to make certain plans like that because I never want to be disappointed. I'm a happy person and I love what I do. And every day I get up, I love doing what I do. And that's enough for me right now.
That's perfect.
If there's one thing that you'd like to see happen in 2021 that would make you super excited, or one thing that you're looking forward to, just in terms of like, I don't know, you're looking to travel again, like what's on your mind that you can't wait for 2021 to happen?
In 2021, the main focus that I have, the most important thing is to watch my friends who are also my family, I'd say, fix themselves and get better as far as their codependent issues. I would love to see that happen. I think there's been a lot of wake up calls to my loved ones through the pandemic where they are becoming aware of their own self-destructive behavior. And I hope that wake up call gets them to not do it. I think that's 2021. What I'm most focused on is watching my loved ones fix their self-destructive behavior.
What an amazing answer. Because everybody else is so focused on the things that they're going to get and the things that they want in their lives. And here you are like, I just want to see my friends being their best selves. That's awesome.
I had a really self-destructive time period of my life in my late 20s. And knowing that that's behind me now and knowing how to not do that, I think it's really important to not destroy yourself, to make choices that are healthy and stuff like that. And now that I do that, I would like to see everybody else make healthy choices as well. Because a lot of us humans get into patterns that destroy ourselves. We're our own worst enemy and we don't have to be.
Amen.
Yep. Absolutely.
Amen.
I will say, I completely reiterate that like this codependency has been so obvious in the pandemic.
It's really bad.
I really noticed it at first, just like when I was like, okay, dating is weird, but like maybe I'll like go on like an app and see if I can just like meet some people to talk to. And the first day I was on this app, before I even finished setting up my profile, I had 4 people who were already like, hey, what's up? And I'm like, yo, like I haven't even finished. Can you like give me like a minute? Damn.
People are thirsty right now. So for everybody listening at home, focus on yourselves, guys. Pandemic is a time to get connected to yourself again, to find love for yourself, to realize that you don't need other people to fill those holes in your life. I know you're looking at me like this is some magical new awakening, but this is great advice, and this has been the thing that's really helped me, deal with this dark time, and I think that you guys are spot on. When you can learn to really prioritize yourself and love yourself first, and give yourself the right space to just be alone. That's when you can be a good person in the world.
Vivica may be looking at you right now like it's an awakening or something like that, but we're all a work in progress. It's like we're all learning these things as we go, and we're not, none of us are infallible of repeating past bad mistakes, but it's important to know it. And again, the first step in any addiction is to admit you have a problem. So
absolutely.
Amen.
And learn how to be better. Like once you admit, once you recognize there's a problem, you learn, okay, well, what is the solution to this problem? Like, what is the root of this problem? What is causing me to continue this behavior? So that you can figure out how to pull back from it.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. It's been so nice to get to talk to you a little bit about like behind the scenes and other things that are going on in your life. And I hope that we get the chance to do this again. And I hope we can do some cool photo shoots in the near future. So let's stay in touch.
Let's do it. I'm happy to come in and dress you guys up, and we'll do some promo shots or something like that.
Oh my God, I love
you guys are both. Vivica, it was a pleasure to meet you. John, it's always a pleasure. You are you're a breath of fresh air and a bright light, and it's always great to have you on a set.
Right back at you. Where can people find you online?
You guys can find me at Andrew Christi, Peter Pandrew. And just go to the Wingman page, and I'll always be there, Wingman Magazine. So
awesome. We'll link those up in the show notes for anybody who's listening.
Thank you so much.
It was great chatting with you.
Awesome. Thanks again,
Great
Andrew.
chatting with you, Vivica. Hope we could do it in person.
Have a great one.
We'll talk to you soon.
Oh, absolutely.
Ciao.